Thank you so much for these great people on the screen here. They are supporting our channel to bring you more education like this. If you are interested in joining the crew, come on down. The link is in the description below. LGA golfers, you asked for Porzak Golf. We're going to be taking a look at him today. We're going to do his cause and effect and his golf swing. A little bit of a history about him. He was a very accomplished golfer, and I'm talking about elite. So as a junior golfer, he won a lot of competitions, highly decorated, played in 2 colleges. We take a look at his profile page here. The guy can clearly go low when he needs to. So I wanted to just touch on this before we go into swing analysis, because I did watch many of his videos and he does a great job explaining. I definitely agree with a lot of things he's saying about this hip bump that we're going to go over, and I know there's a lot of people questioning about what this hip bump means and what it does for your golf swing, and he does a really good job of striking golf balls for the student. I just want to touch base on this because this is a trap that I fell into about 20 years ago when I was trying to teach people a swing that was working for me. And I'm not saying he's doing this, but it is a pretty easy motion for him, and when he's trying to teach it to students, there could be a little bit of loss of feeling, loss of translation. Obviously people's bodies are not the same. And case in point, I'm going to put a few videos of my swing right now, and these swings are from around 15 years ago, and this is when I was playing a lot. I would probably hit 500 to 1,000 golf balls every other day. I'd play every other day. I was able to shoot under par most of the times. I was actually a fairly good golfer. Now obviously we're going to zoom into a swing now, and you can see 2 completely different motions. And the new swing now, I'm lucky to get out 6 to 10 times a year, and I think in total I hit about 500 to 1,000 balls a year. So 2 completely different golfers. And my older swing, I have good range of motion, I'm very connected, I'm wide, I'm short with my golf swing, and I actually hit the golf ball fairly accurately. But you take a look at me now, I don't have the flexibility, I don't practice enough, I don't play enough, and my arms are very dominating in my golf swing now. And there's days when I do play that I time it pretty well, but all the other days it's like army golf. I'm going left and right, and it's just not a fun day. But the reason I bring this up is because my golf swing has changed over the past decade plus, because my body has changed. Now this type of swing might work for somebody in that time frame of their life, and it has to appeal to where you are currently in your golf swing and your body. That's the biggest thing I can take away from this. And with all the videos we do on these swing methods and how we diagnose things, you just have to keep this in mind. Now what could help you is I released a video a few days ago, 23 questions to help you figure out what method would work for you. So go ahead and take that if you have not already. It'll spit out some points and kind of point you in the right direction based on your body limitations. But I always encourage you to know where you are currently in terms of your practice time. Range of motion is a big thing as well to look at, so make sure you get tested somewhere. So let's just listen to what Porzak said about this hip bump at setup.
Like, you want to, here's where you want to have your hip bump to, out here. Awesome. And now try, when you turn, try to feel like it stays up against that. Yeah, and I bump my hips forward. That signature hip bump that I always talk about. So 2 components of that, right? Hips are square, sternum is still, hips go forward. Pressure shifts to the inside of my right foot and the flat of my left foot. I have a post, I have a brace, and as my mentor always said, Todd Sones, he always tell me, this is the anchor point of the swing right here. Okay, so when I turn, watch, I'm turning, and you notice how I maintain that anchor point. I haven't moved off of it very far. Now, here's the thing, that's the feel versus the real. Like, people will move off a little bit, but it's not an active effort to do that with the lower body. People think weight transfer, and what do? They slide, and then they sway and they slide. And that line is there because I can turn around my spine. Watch, proof, my head's not moving. The shoulders, my muscles are just turning right around my spine, and that's what puts the pressure right to the inside of my back leg. I feel big time pressure right in here, and I could push off right around my anchor point.
So he did a really good job of explaining what this does, but in my interpretation of what this does for the setup is it can help the body kind of align in a more neutral to forward tilted position. So in other words, you're kind of more over the golf ball instead of sitting too far back, which in turn will put you in a more athletic posture. He felt the pressure shift change in his feet, which could help set up a coiled centered backswing, which I'm sure he is feeling. It could also help the secondary spine tilt, which is at the top of the swing, which way is leaning forward or back, and that could also help you establish a correct axis for you to tilt around, giving you a better angle of attack and dynamic rotation. And it could also help prevent the reverse pivot. So I do see a lot of good things that this could help. This could definitely benefit somebody who struggles with kind of reverse pivot, poor balance, someone who starts with too much weight on one foot or the other. It kind of pulls you back to more of an and athletic posture. And lastly, golfers who do lose posture early in the backswing, which I think all these are great things. It's a subtle move, but it can also create that great chain reaction of sequencing that you are looking for better contact and consistency. But some of the cons that I see coming out of this potentially, specifically if the student is left to their own devices, you can start to overbump, which could lead to a slide. You can get this false sense of coiling because some players might feel loaded and then they're not able to turn properly, and that could take the opposite effect and giving you a short, more disconnected golf swing. You could be tilting and not getting the tension, which would lead the upper body to maybe collapse or feel like this floating feeling. And the number one reason is it just could be inconsistent with specific swing models or styles, and those are all limited around your range of motion, your flexibility, and your obviously hand-eye coordination and athleticism. We're going to be taking a look at these two golf swings face on down the line, and we're going to analyze his cause and effect, talk about what I see if this was a student of mine, and we're just going to take it through the same cause and effect analysis that I give all my students. But I do recommend you go check out his channel if you have not already. I assume you have, because there is a lot of great content out there if it falls in your swing method and your body's capabilities. So again, go do that 23 question test and see if your points fall in that range. That might work for you, but let's go check out the swing. Okay, so we got his swing on screen. Let me just say this is a really, really athletic, powerful swing. It is a little bit unique, and we'll go over some of these unique things that he does at impact, more specifically with his left arm, how we see a little bit of a break just to help with his hand speed, and we'll talk more about that. But in terms of his setup, well, we've got some lines on the screen for you. We got the OG Barney Purple left side showing you a spine angle, lower and upper plane lines with our Gumby green. That back brace line is Smirkleton, and we have the Ivan Red over the head just to show you some upward and forward motions with his head. Right side of the screen, we got Ivan Red showing you the bracing of his legs, and this is very important for his move that he's trying to help you guys out with. And we're also going to look at, does he do it himself? And he does actually do it, so it's really impressive that he's doing what he is teaching. So finally, again, we found somebody else besides Milo Lines that does what they teach. And then lastly, we've got a head brace line, and then the Mellow Yellow will show you the shoulder tilt, and this has to do with setup and how you carry angles down into impact. But let's get started from the very start of the swing. And what we'll see on the left side of the screen is we're going to draw from the arches of the feet straight up to the sky, and we can see that his X, where his lower plane line and his spine angle are sitting behind the center. So for those of you at home who set up like this, you had better be able to keep your weighting back, because you'll notice at impact, if you don't have the ability to manage your weighting in your feet, you don't have good glutes, you don't have good hamstrings, you are going to lose that posture. So if you take a look at impact, he does a really good job of maintaining that. But take a look just after impact. Watch the center of his hips as he finishes. It's going to move towards this line. So we see right there is the center, and it wants to go back to the initial starting position of his centeredness. So that's why it's important, if you take a look at your setup, if you are losing posture, it could be a simple setup change by getting your feet more under your hips to support that, so you can maintain your balance at impact. But obviously that's for another video. Just wanted to show you a little cause and effect, but let's take a look. So let's use Smirkleton on the right side, and we're going to see that forward press that he is establishing. Now, no, this is a wedge. On the left side of the screen, I'm not sure what club this is. It does look like either a wedge through a 7, right around there. With his videos, he does a lot of drills, and he hits golf balls doing these drills, so it was hard for me to find a full swing. So this is all we got to work with, but this will get the job done for us. Now, for those of you at home who do like to set up with a forward press, obviously with an iron, we need a little bit of a forward press, but you want to keep it relative to your tilting. You don't want to have that club be too far off your tilting, because then you're going to have to do something on an impact, either the old chicken wing, you're going to have to fall back, or you're going to have to throw the hands at the top, get disconnected, move over to the left side too much, and that's where the steepness comes in. So you want to be very careful if you can maintain the forward press throughout impact. So let's go to this midway point, and we can see on the left side of the screen, we don't have a lot of area to use where that X is because of the way he's set up. He is squatting down a little bit, which pulls his hands a little bit too close to his knees. So we do see this move that he wants you to take care of right away is that bumping with the setup, but then initially just turning your hips right away, because this allows him the spacing for the hands to take down low and stay on that lower plane line, because he does have a significantly lower plane line than I have seen due to his setup. We look at the right side of the screen, we can see our Gumby green line over here. We don't have that swaying, and this is what he's talking about with the bumping and basically just turning around. So we'll see that spacing as we get to the top of his swing on the right side. It actually increases. So look at that right hip. It is going towards the target as well as his left hip. So we see that this is moving closer to the target, which ensures that feeling where he feels this left side is just one big post that he can now turn and tilt around. So this is a great feeling if you can do it. I used to have this feeling, but if I do it now, something's going to give. My back is just not designed for this anymore. I understand the feeling that he's trying to teach, and it is a very powerful move if you can do it. Now, left side of the screen, we can see the camera is going to shift a little bit, so he doesn't necessarily lose that back bracing line, but we see the top of the position here. We can see he does get slightly above the secondary plane line, but you know what's great about this position? He's able to get his weighting to go down slightly, so that shows you that this is a great tilting related to his spine angle. So if you look at the shoulder tilt, we can see that is basically perpendicular to where he first set up his spine. So this is very key if you want to utilize this on the left side where you feel your hips are turning immediately. You've got to get your tilting correctly, because if you don't and you start losing that tilt, all hell's going to break loose, because then your arm plane is going to change. You're going to have to develop a compensation for that. And now all of a sudden, we're not going to be tilting correctly. And this is where you run into some pretty big issues. So you want to make sure that you can at least keep your tilting relative to your starting position. And that is key, because if you bend over too much, now all of a sudden to maintain that tilting based on your turn, very hard. But the right side of the screen, we can see a beautiful turn. We see those hands are way out in front, which is great. So he is connected more so to the right shoulder, but they are out in front. The width, remember, width creates speed. I would much rather have somebody be wider and connected than disconnected and longer, because width and connection you bring into the conversation of the bigger parts of your body turning and striking the golf ball. The hands can now keep up with that rotation, keep up with that tilting accordingly. Now, if you're disconnected, you turn, all of a sudden your hands are so far behind you, your turning either has to stop to allow your hands to catch up, but at that point, the hand speed picks up and they can't hold on to that angle, and now you throw at impact. So if you look like this at impact, look at your connection at the top. But he does a great job of staying connected. And you can see, look at the amount of stretch on that shirt. So you see all these lines, that's not a pattern. I hope my glasses aren't that bad. That is the stretching of the fabric. So he assists this with a slight pigeon toe at the start of his swing. So this kind of locks his hips. So he is probably very gifted in the ability to separate his hips from his shoulders, because his hips still look like they turn. So I would imagine he came up with this toe inward to prevent the hips from turning even more. So this is a very Gumby-like motion, but he utilizes it fantastically. And the great thing too is, look at the center of his chest. It is actually shifted a little bit ahead of where it started. So this is not necessarily stacking on the left side where we see the stack and tilts, but you can definitely see he's staying on that left side without increasing and not falling back like we see some people try to do, and that creates another issue. But this first move, let's take a look. We're going to keep Smirkleton because he's actually easy to see here. So we're going to draw that triangle check. Now, the first move can show how connected we are. So if you take a look at where the club goes down, look at those hands. They'll go right straight down where that triangle was set at the top. That means that there is no compensations occurring. If you see people with hands that are very high, you will typically see them try to reroute it to that center of the triangle first before they start that motion down, specifically if they're really good ball strikers. I have seen people start with that triangle where the club moves slightly right and they can still strike the ball pretty good, and they probably play a little fade or maybe a pull every now and then. But if you're looking for consistency, I don't care if it moves right, I don't care if it moves left, but you have to look at, can it do it all the time? And that will give you consistency so your body can develop around that motion too. So it's a fine balance between your arm hand position and the body. But if you focus on the body, my personal opinion is focus on the body, because body creates consistency for the hands and arms to develop on their own, and they'll just develop on their own. So don't necessarily look at your hands and try and fix your hands. Look at your hands and say, why are my hands doing this? It's probably because the body is not quite in the correct position for you. So take a look at the head. As he goes down, we see the body going down, but also at the same time, the lower body starting to drive up. So we have this compression. So the upper body's working its way down, lower body's working its way up. We are compressing that area where the hands will go through and deliver the power. So everything's working inward. And in order to work inward, you have to maintain your posture. You can't work inward and lose your posture. Something's going to blow out. Probably your lower back's going to blow out, but you cannot do that unless you can maintain your posture at impact. So we take a look at right at impact. We see that tiny little posture loss, but that's because of the camera angle, but he's still in his original forward bend, which is great. And one more thing I wanted to show you is if we go back to the top of the swing here with the rotation. So look at the right side of the screen and watch where the body stops to rotate. So we're going to go about here. We're rotating, upper body still rotating. As soon as that upper body stops, what happens to the hands? They don't continue, they stop right there. So this again promotes connection, and as we turn, we can now turn and keep our hands right in front of our chest and tilt accordingly to drop it in the slot, maybe pull our hands down slightly. But remember, at impact, the hands will always arrive higher at impact. So there's impact. Let's draw a Smirkleton around the hands, and let's go look at the starting position, and we'll see those hands are going to be significantly lower. Now, why do they go lower? And we have to talk about the rotation. So the more you rotate, the more you can stay in your posture. Speed picks up. And just like anything that's orbiting, you look at the moon, it's orbiting some sort of axis. We're orbiting an axis of the sun. We found an orbit. The hands are going to find an orbit based on the rotation. So the faster you can rotate and keep things relative. So let me see if I can do it this way. So if we draw where the edge of his butt is and where the shoulder is, basically this is the center of that area that's rotating. So the more you can keep your posture the same, the more you can increase rotation, what will happen to your hands? Your hands want to work towards the center of that rotation axis. Now that is the reason the hands go up. Yes, shaft droops, and I don't know if that's because of the design of this happening, but shaft droop is not necessarily why the hands go up. It's a small contributing factor, but it's more about rotation and keeping up with your connection. The more you do that, the more your hands want to raise up. So let's go to the right side of the screen now, and let's look at this where this arrow is almost complete. Let's do a fire arrow. We take a look at this first transition move. So we watch the transition. We see the hips are leading the way. Typically, what do we see? We see some spacing, and then the knees will hit that, and then sometimes we see the hips turn back around to create spacing. But here, the hips have hit it first because they were leading the race, and now we drive into the golf ball, and now the lower body's going up while the upper body's going down. So if we delete all these lines, just take a look at this angle that he's created. It is an immense amount of angle. So this is very, very athletic. And the really cool thing about this too is look at the tilting of the shoulders. The tilting is not kicking up too soon. I see a lot of people kick up their left shoulder up too soon, and it could be because you're coming out of your posture as well. But this is key to strike down, because if you take a look at this, remember, this forms a little circle too. So this circle is on its way down to the golf ball. If it was facing this way, that circle's on its way up to the golf ball, which is what you want for a driver, but not for an iron. And the key thing is, let's look at where that centeredness is in Gumby Green. It is still ahead of the golf ball. So now we know we're going to close this gap on the way down. So we're going to strike down on it. But take a look at this. Let's delete these lines up and let's redraw that connection. So left shoulder to right shoulder, chest out in front of that, centeredness. So we see that the hands are still behind the centeredness because they're still connected to that right shoulder. So here we have a really good connection to the right side. As we come on down to impact, one frame, we can start to see this lead arm has a slight break in it. Now, a couple of reasons this is occurring: because he carried that tilting angle more towards the golf ball sooner, and now he's starting to level out his tilting. If he were to extend his arm straighter at this point, we would see that his hands would be 3 or 4 inches closer to the ground, and what would happen? He'd probably bottom out 3 or 4 inches before the golf ball. Number two, the second reason this is occurring is to pick up his hand speed. What do I mean by this? Let's redraw this one more time. We got the shoulder tilting, the center of the shoulders pointing out, perpendicular. We have a space between the hands and that centeredness, so he has to pick up his hand speed. At this point of the game, there's no way for you to stop rotating and turning to pick up your hand speed. One way to pick it up is to start breaking that left elbow. So as he strikes it, that left elbow breaks, and this tiny little breakage, watch what happens. So if I have a straight elbow here and I go ahead and break it, what's happened to my hands? My hands have pulled up and it's gotten closer to my lead shoulder. So I'm going to reconnect my hands to my centeredness. So you can start to see this happening. Let's draw the next frame of tilting and relationship from left shoulder to right shoulder. There's the center. We can see now that the hands have caught up to that perpendicular, and one more frame, they are completely caught up now. If we draw this now in mellow yellow, we can see there's the shoulder tilt, there's the center of that tilt. They have caught up. So there's a couple of reasons that he does this, in my opinion, but overall I think this is a phenomenal swing. He definitely does what he preaches, so congratulations. I'm so happy we found somebody else that does this. Great swing, great guy. It seems he seems like he's got a knowledge for this motion. So if this really speaks to you, if you've gone through those 23 questions video that I did a couple days ago and your body style fits this, I think if anybody out of all of them that you want to listen to is this gentleman. So I hope that helps you. I'll see you Sunday for the red light live stream. If you want your videos analyzed by me live on YouTube, send me your face on down the line. We do have about a 2 to 3 week waiting period, but we're going next Sunday. Maybe not the Sunday after, I'm down teaching again, but we'll probably have to find up a makeup session. But other than that, I'll see you guys Sunday for the Red Light Live. Fairways and greens.